Uh, Real quick, the stage that I think needs to be set is one of national security. In the last Congress, Chairman Wolf mentioned from the floor of the House that the National Weather Service got hacked into. He attributed it to the Chinese, and it compelled NOAA to shut down some satellites for a period of time. It wasn't too long ago, I think it was in 2007, the Chinese used a direct ascent anti-satellite missile to shoot down one of their own satellites in low Earth orbit. The reason I think it is important for us to take advantage of commercial is quite frankly to very quickly disaggregate and distribute the architecture as you have rightly identified as one of our goals. One of the challenges to rapidly distribute the architecture is being able to buy data from commercial. It's why we are doing it in the Department of Defense. I'm also on the Subcommittee on Strategic Forces on the Armed Services Committee, and we deal a lot with the communication architecture as well as remote sensing and imagery. This is why this is important, taking advantage of commercial. It not only complicates the targeting solution for the enemy, but also they have to invest a whole lot more money to jam or hack into numerous different ground architectures as well. So it changes their calculation for how much they have to invest and those kind of things, and it could actually deter them from making those investments to begin with. This is why it is so important that we correctly interpret WMO 40. And because if the commercial industry believes that the data purchased by NOAA is going to be given away to the world for free, then they won't create that data to begin with. And if they don't create the data, then it's not a global public good because it's not a good at all, which is a concern of mine. One of the areas we've been looking at is how do we comply with WMO 40 and at the same time make sure that we're not destroying a market that would otherwise exist. Some of the areas we've talked about are resolution restrictions. If commercial operators are going to invest in new instruments and technologies and capabilities that is of higher resolution than what the government is building itself, then maybe we can protect that data and not give it away for free to the world and prevent that market from forming. Also, we've talked about data tiers. Maybe the first 20,000 radio occultations can come from Cosmic, and beyond that, there'd be another tier of data where we can augment our systems with even more radio occultations. And of course, we've had testimony on this committee indicating that more occultation, there is no limit to the benefit of more occultations. We need more and more and more, and it gets the models better and better and better. And in some cases, we can actually lose some of the primary sensors when you have that much radio occultation data. And then, of course, time delays. Certainly, the data doesn't have to be shared to the world immediately, but maybe if we delay it for 24 or 48 hours, we can create the market and be in compliance with WMO 40. So I wanted to talk to you. You mentioned that you had talked to folks in Geneva regarding WMO 40. Can you share with us what their thoughts were on it and kind of the direction they're thinking about going?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I have not been in discussion at this level of detail about particular tactics or methods with the Secretary General. He doesn't operate at that level either. But to the point of confirming that the world is changing, there are interesting and different prospects emerging. You know, the arrow of time only goes in one direction. We all know that. And that it's important that we find ways forward that engage with and understand and explore these new prospects.
Right.
And also that we do that in a way, to use an engineering term I know you'll understand from your pilot background, let's make sure that we do a make before break connection. Like an astronaut with a tether or a mountaineer, these data are valuable to forecast today, as I know you appreciate very well. Let's make sure we've got our hand firmly on a real replacement that we know brings the same or better value before we let go of this one. Mm-hmm. The policy framework we've set out, the process we hope to bring to you shortly, and the specifications that we'll set up, the conversations we've had with industry on this subject have all been with that motivation.
Thank you for that. And just so you know, on the armed services side, we're working with the Department of Defense. They're looking at commercial data buys as well to help accelerate this process, again, for national security reasons, which is a good thing. I want to switch gears real quick. I want to talk about spectrum. As I understand it, the administration has asked federal agencies to identify areas of spectrum that could be utilized for other purposes. There's a slide up. I just want everybody to take a look at it. It is also my understanding that weather data streaming from satellites to ground stations could be severely impacted if required to move or share spectrum with other users. Obviously, when we open up spectrum and we share spectrum, we can jam ourselves. And I think NOAA and this committee are going to be in agreement that the last thing we want to do is release spectrum to be used by other operators that would hinder our ability to predict severe weather. When you look at this slide here, you can see the areas that have been blacked out because of interference from other people using the same spectrum. Does NOAA advocate for moving or sharing spectrum when it comes to our weather satellites?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me say at the outset how much we appreciate your keen understanding of this interest and its potential impact on our mission. We support the President's policy to recognize the growing arena of broadband in the world that we live in these days, but we do support ensuring that there is a clear and established process, realistic timelines, and that we NOAA are provided the means and the time that might be needed to provide what adjustments or protections prevent this sort of interference happening. I know you have heard we're seeing interference even at one of the test sites where there is a pilot test of an exclusionary zone. We're still seeing that kind of interference from sources that are up to 100 miles away.
Over-the-horizon communications for the Department of Defense these days overwhelmingly is commercial. About 80% of it is commercial. That's within, a lot of it is within the Ka frequency spectrum. And in fact, the 5G networks are looking at maybe not cannibalizing, but sharing more of that 5G or more of that Ka spectrum. And it's very dangerous for the warfighters because ultimately they're the ones that need the information and they need it complete and they need it when they need it, and we don't need to be worrying about interference. With that, I will yield back the negative 2 minutes that I've taken and recognize Ms. Bonamici for as much time as she may consume.